Alright, so thank God, thank God, thank God in the mighty name of King Jesus. I was listening to the message this morning, and God gave me something. I'm gonna get back on there in a minute, a little bit later on, and I'm gonna speak on it. But this ain't gonna sound good right here, but this is the truth, and this is what God had. He was speaking it to me like as the woman of God was speaking, and I'm just gonna just hit it a little bit, but this is where it's going, about, and this not just for nobody else. This most definitely for me too. I ain't gonna get into the whole reason it's for me, but it's most definitely for me too. But and it's for everybody else too. But like the perfect will of God and the permissive will of God. And this is the truth. And see, people ain't gonna like this. I'm just gonna hit this where the point of it is, and I'm gonna go to why. Later on, the point of it is if you're not in the perfect will of God and you just doing the permissive will, that's your will. Guess what the permissive will is? There ain't nothing but death. It say I set before you this day life and death. Therefore choose life. It's life and death. It ain't no in between. What they call that? I don't know what they call that. The in between of purgatory or what they call that. I don't know what they call that. They call the place in between. Like when you die, it ain't no in between. It's either it's either heaven or it's hell. And it's either life or death. There ain't no in between. If you in a permissive will, you in death. It may not be fully manifested, but you in death. Cause then I'm just gonna give you this, and this part what I'm gonna go to it. Like when we talk, like when you think about Saul, like Israel, what Israel was in when Saul was their king. They were in death. It wasn't fully manifested while they were in death. Death is oppression. Death is all of these things. They were in death. And they were being delivered constantly because guess what? They were being oppressed by the Philistines. They were in death. It just wasn't fully manifest. And they stayed in death until they were delivered. And David became like the king. But they were in death. Yeah, so if you're in a permissive will, you're in death. God is just keeping you in it because when we living in sin, we living in death. But God is able to sustain us. See, and just think about that. That's how great God is. Even in death, God is able to sustain you. Because you're living in death. When you're not doing the will of God and you're doing your own will, because permissive will, this God is going to permit you to do it, but it's not His will. It's either your will or His will. It ain't no in-between will. And when you like doing your will, guess who will you doing then? You doing the devil's will. Yeah, because the devil wants you to separate yourself from God. Because when you doing your will, you separate yourself from God. So the point of it is, I ain't gonna go that far in it right now. I'm gonna go to some explanation. It's gonna be biblical explanation about why that is. Your permissive will, what God permits you to do, that's the will of death. Well, God permits you to go to hell. God permits you to go to hell. If that's where you want to go and that's what you choose, God permit it. But that's not the perfect will of God. The perfect will of God is for Him to save you. But will He permit it? Yeah, He will permit it. So when you think about doing the permissive will, think about submitting yourself to death. And that ain't just for you. That's definitely for me too. And the reason why it is, I may say it later on. But I ain't gonna say it right now, but that's for definitely for me too. So I ain't just saying it for nobody. It don't sound good, yeah, but I definitely gotta take all that in myself too. But I ain't worried about it because I'm gonna be in the perfect will of God because God just gonna keep me there. That's how. So thank God in the mighty name of King Jesus.